Let's get into this conversation because Justin Tucker, headliner in this game, unfortunately, not in the good way. This is uncharted territory for the greatest kicker of all time, essentially. Bill Belichick went on the Pat McAfee show today. There was the question of kind of what you're seeing, Bill. And, you know, there was adjustments made, but clearly things are still wrong. So we're going to play that clip about Bill Belichick reacting, and we'll talk about it on the other side.
They're missing both ways. Every one of his misses up until yesterday was left, like the same thing. And I don't like to drop my thoughts into people's life and be like, I know more than you. This is what I should do, especially in this world because there's so much going on and every kicker is different, every operation is different. But I wanted to text Jordan Stout, the punter, and be like, hey, can we just lean the ball a little bit so that he can maybe straighten that thing out as opposed to the draw? You know, let's lean it a little bit, fight the draw. And then he misses one to the right, and I'm like, all right, now I don't know. You know, like there's real cause for concern in panic, I think, whenever you're missing both ways, Coach.
Yeah, well, and to your point, Pat, just a little bit of lean one way or the other can definitely affect the flight of the ball. One thing about Tucker's balls, in my experience, has been his balls always went perfectly straight. They didn't hook through. They didn't have any draw on them. They were just straight.
Sure.
And when I see his balls start to move a little bit now, that tells me that there's something different than what it was. I don't know exactly what that is. Maybe it's the lean of the ball. Maybe it's his technique. Maybe it's I'm not sure exactly, but it seems like that's correctable. Just got to figure out what it is.
I think so too. The thing I'm worried about is maybe he has a little, because maybe he's something, but but that has not been announced, so we can't obviously assume anything. But come on, Tuck. Come on, baby.
Got it, Tucker. Tuck.
Come on, Tuck.
Well, there's no doubt, Pat. If there's an injury involved and there's a compensation for that, that could definitely, change the mechanics of the kick.
So interesting, right? The one part of it saying going from side to side. And I actually thought it was interesting, Pat McAfee, mentioning with Jordan Stout of, hey, try to lean the ball one way. And for all of Tucker's misses until that second one, we're always just a hair left, right? Mm-hmm. Wide left. And then that last miss went right for the first time all season. Clearly something's off, and Zach, I think that what they're looking at here, yes, they could talk about you can overcompensate an injury, and you and I have had this conversation. And for me with baseball, I could tell you guys, for guys that are trying to throw, guys that are trying to hit, if something's just a hair off, you're changing something maybe without noticing, or you're trying to do too much because you think you need to do more. But everything we've heard, Zach, from Tucker was, hey, he's striking it well in warmups. Everything looks good in practice. I think it's right in between the ears right now where we don't know what could be going on in personal life, what could be going on, outside of the field of play. But what we do know is when he's stepping on the field of play, we're seeing the same results. And I'm not seeing a guy that's lost physical leg talent. I'm just seeing a guy that doesn't have confidence. That's the first time as Ravens fans, truly, that we've ever seen this vulnerable of a Justin Tucker in the 12 years he's been with the team.
Yeah. I don't know. That's unfortunately the answer is I don't know when it comes to this Justin Tucker stuff, because like you just said, as a Ravens fan, as someone who has spent the last 12 years, anytime Justin Tucker trotted out there, that didn't matter if it was from 66, didn't matter if it was from 15. I thought that ball with 100% confidence was going through the uprights. And as you said, he hasn't lost leg. He'll kick it, and he's kicking it from 56, 57, and it's going through. It's even the misses are going through halfway up the upright. The leg's still there. I don't know what's happened with the accuracy. If it is overcompensation for something, if it is just, hey, mechanics are off, because this is the first time in our lives that we've looked at Justin Tucker and we're like, yesterday, I literally, we sat there, it was on the 25, 30-yard line. And I was like, this might be 4-down territory if you don't get this on 4th and 8, because I don't know if your kicker has confidence. I used to be someone who it'd be like, it's a 68-yarder from this length. I was like, send him out there.
Yeah.
I'm like, you might as well. He'll probably make it. We're good. And it's just complete 180. So it sucks.
You know what I want to tell people as well? This is a good baseball analogy. You know, because I was sitting there, Zach, and my dad and I were talking about this, just the psychological part. Because baseball players, man, you can get in your head and the best thing can happen or the worst thing can happen. And for Orioles fans, I think the biggest one recently, as we're looking over the last, 5 to 10 years, or one that just fell off so dramatically, the Chris Davis situation, right? Where a hitter could be so good the year before, and then all of a sudden it goes, well, what happened? You get in your head as a hitter. When you are on a hot streak as a hitter, you can hit anything. Balls 5 feet above your head, balls in the dirt. You're taking every tough pitch. Nothing stops you. I'd consider that for a kicker. For Tucker last year, when you're saying, hey, send him out there, when Tucker was on, it didn't matter where it was. It didn't matter if it was a low snap. Didn't matter of any circumstance. He believed he was going to go out there and make it. So for the first time in his career now this year, he's not having that confidence that he's going to go out there and make it. He might say that, hey, I trust myself that I'm going to make the kick. But in the back of your mind, I'm telling you as an athlete, there's something there that you're not having that same belief. And it's a real thing. Mm-hmm. It's a real thing that athletes got to deal with. And so many kickers here, when the ones that don't make it in the NFL, or they have to go somewhere to get a second chance, it's not because they lack leg talent. Mm-hmm. I'm trying to think of even kickers now in the NFL. Correct me if I'm wrong. Didn't Koo start with the Chargers back in the day?
Oh,
I think he did. I don't think he started with the Falcons. And then it took him some time. How about Robert Aguayo had the best leg coming out of college, apparently? And then how quickly he was gone. He couldn't make those pressure kicks. So it's not anything so much to do with, you're right, Koo was with the Chargers.
Koo was with the Chargers.
Ravens fans can remember Stephen Hauschka had a tough time in Baltimore, settled in and found himself in Seattle.
Yeah.
Kickers jump around all the time because it's not a physical trait, it's a mental trait. But what's it mean for Baltimore now? What do you do? Because it's the greatest kicker we've seen in our generation, Zach. It's a guy that has more experience than anybody else, but what do you do? Personally, I think you ride or die with the situation. And I know that's what people are saying, hey, you get rid of him. If he gets back to any type of his form, the Ravens are going to go a far way in the playoffs. I do believe that. But it's a risk. Where do you stand on that?
It's tough. This is probably the toughest decision out there for the Ravens right now, because you would obviously have to come from out of organization to go get a kicker. Do you bring in someone for competition just to be like, hey, we need to start looking? Does that hurt the confidence more? It's something just – I agree with what British Raven says, where he talks about their actions in the bye week will be key. I think this is interesting because it is a bye week. I'm not sure what happens if they view this as, hey, we're just going to give everyone time to reset, or do they view this as, hey, we need to find something to add to this team, whether it is the kicker or whatever it may be. I think we'll know by this bye week. I don't think if they stick with Tucker coming out of this, which I believe they will, I just find it very hard to see them move on from Tucker. And I know people will say, oh, we're just relying on his, past and everything, the nostalgia. Bill Belichick talked about it too. If there's a big moment in the playoffs, it's such a mental game that you want the guy who's been there, done that, even if he's not doing well right now. So I lean that they're going to stick with Tucker. I find it very hard to see them moving on, especially because I believe if they cut him, his dead cap is more than what it would be to just keep him. So just so many different variables. I think it is just, they're going to stick with them.
And I think that they should. I think great kickers, by the way, I think it's a good thing to do. Also, another name who's arguably, he's at the top of that list right now for kickers. It's in the division. He won the game for the Steelers against Baltimore, Chris Boswell. Mm-hmm. Chris Boswell was 6 for 6 against the Ravens in that game?
Yep.
People might forget in 2018, Pittsburgh was in a similar situation with him. He couldn't make a kick. He was 13 of 20, Zach, on field goals, and he missed 5 extra points that year. And people were going, well, wait a minute, what do we do? What do we do with Chris Boswell? Well, he got right. They stayed with him. And Chris Boswell then hasn't had more, if I'm looking at this correctly. He's had one down season where he was injured in 2022, where he only played 12, so he was on the IR injury. Take out the injuries aside, the next year, 29-31, 19-20, 36-40, 29-31, and this year he's 34 for 37. So great kickers can get back on track.
Yeah. And I like what Chris says here. There's no point that you should even leave the games in the hands or feet of your kicker anyway. Anyone, even the most cold-blooded of all, can miss at the worst times. We remember, even when he was at his best, the Saints extra point. Everyone remembers Lamar Jackson's first touchdown game. Joe Flacco's last as the starter. Ravens go down, tie the game. This was peak Tucker.
Yeah.
This was Tucker. If it even swayed slightly to the right but was still down the middle, you're like, ooh, what happened there? This was dead center Tucker. Missed the extra point to tie the game.
Yep.
I mean, it just happens.
And this is the case. Gary Anderson, for those that would remember back in the day, Gary Anderson for that Minnesota Vikings team was unbelievable.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Great, fantastic, perfect. Would have sent the Vikings to the Super Bowl, and he missed a kick he probably makes 9 times out of 10, right? So, or maybe even 10 times out of 10.